Hello, today I'm shooting a film from the neighboring village where I live. I live in Pietrusza Wola. This is Rzepnik. It's another small Carpathian village with a beautiful former Orthodox church. And I lived here for 12 years. I lived in this house by the road. You can see the red one. There are a couple of oaks around the church. Here is a remnant of an old ancient oak that is still kept. It's been dead for decades actually, but it's still kept as a stump. And here is an oak which is 7 meters in perimeter, a beautiful ancient oak, already kind of dying, but still producing acorns and full of interesting mushrooms growing on it. It's hollow inside. You can go in. It's a whole ecosystem, you know. Also lots of hornets sometimes nesting inside. It's growing by the church. It's very common in Poland that old trees are found by churches, especially oaks and lindens, lime trees, which are seen as kind of noble and protected. This is a church which is over 100 years old. It has this kind of Eastern architecture because this village, a few villages around here, were inhabited by Ukrainian nationality people called Zamieszańcy, an ethnographic group which settled here a few hundred years before, surrounded by the Polish villages. And at the end of the Second World War, because of Polish-Ukrainian clashes and Ukrainians creating guerrilla fighting for independence in these areas, there was like a civil war here, like in Yugoslavia. So at some point, Polish government had this crazy idea of removing a few 100,000 people, and they did ethnic cleansing and they removed a lot of villages. So now the village is inhabited by Polish people and by mixed origin descendants from before. So, but the architecture is left, and inside you can see beautiful icons, and also in the local cemetery there are a lot of graves written in Cyrillic. But today I'll be talking about horsetail, a very interesting kind of horsetail, giant horsetail. This strangely looking field is a field of giant horsetail. I mean, the actual vegetative shoots didn't come out yet, and this is these are strobili. These are like cone-like things which bear spores, and if you look closely and touch them, they will produce spores. Look, you can see how many. Like other pteridophytes, horsetails have spores which are very light, so their distribution ranges are usually larger than of vascular plants, than of flowering plants which have seeds, because seeds are usually heavier. So originally the distribution of the giant horsetail, which is one of the largest horsetails in the world, it reaches up to 2 meters, was in many parts of North America, especially along the western coast, but also in many parts of Europe, Western Europe and Central Europe. So these two ranges, American one and European one, sometimes they are treated as two separate species. The American one is called Equisetum browni, Brown's horsetail. Then it's put again back together. Recently it's been split again, so we just have to look at the current views. But you know, with genetic studies, we know more and more about you know, the differences between populations. So maybe they are right, maybe they are two different species. Beautiful, aren't they? When you break off this stalk, it has a lot of water inside. It's very juicy. So in some parts of the world, young shoots of horsetails like this are consumed or were consumed. Sometimes it was these green parts, these stalks. When you peel them, they actually look like a gigantic macaroni. And sometimes in some situations also these cone-like structures, strobili, were eaten, although they are a bit bitter. So the most commonly eaten is the field horsetail, which is much smaller, and it's an important part of the Japanese cuisine called tsukushi. It's like this, but just thinner and smaller. In some horsetails, these shoots later turn into normal shoots, so they will produce leaves on the sides and grow and grow and grow. Whereas with this species, giant horsetail, and with the common field horsetail, they die off, so they will just produce spores and die, and then new shoots, new green shoots will come out. So these are called reproductive shoots, and they were peeled and eaten, I mean of the giant American subspecies or species, eaten by the Klala, Macaque, Quillate and Quinault. Also sometimes they were baked. Some Native American tribes also used the young vegetative shoots, and there is no unity, which are better. In some reports said that people even preferred the green shoots, but I am not sure. I prefer the generative ones. So what I usually do, I break them here, and then I use this part separately. It's got very interesting structure. You can use some flour, some butter. It will soak sauce, so you can use it really creatively. They look a bit like morels actually. Whereas these I peel, I clean from the brown stuff and turn them into like macaroni stuff, and also use it with different sauces. The field horsetail, which is common throughout Poland, was eaten in the Tatra Mountains as a snack by children, and also was collected for soups. It was called sypułki, means like stalks. In Poland, this species is quite rare. It's restricted mainly to the southeast, where I live, where it is very common. And now, with the use of glyphosate, actually, this quite rare species is becoming more and more common because it's glyphosate resistant. You can find more information about the use of horsetails and pteridophytes in the world in my book Edible Ferns of the World, which is widely available online. And here is another horsetail, forest horsetail, Equisetum sylvaticum, and it's got smaller strobiles like most horsetails, and the shoots will soon develop green leaves, but you can still use the strobiles like the field horsetail. I don't have it here, so I cannot show it to you, but it's similar size. And there's also some giant horsetail here, so you can actually compare the two species here, and you can see the difference in size. Look, the left one is the forest one, much smaller. All the horsetails produce underground bulbils, which are the size of a nail, maybe a bit smaller in some species, and they are really full of starch, really tasty. Very few people know them because they are buried deep underground, even meters underground, so only rodents can get them out, or you can see them when the land is plowed. And in Eastern Europe, in some places, kids would eat these bulbils, especially in the present territory of Russia. And Recently, last year, we found a large horde of voles made mainly from ground marsh woundwort, Stachys palustris, but there were also some bulbs of Equisetum sylvaticum, this one of this species. So I tried it, I tasted it, it was delicious. Of course, when you consume green parts of horsetails, you should be careful, because careful in this way that you should not eat many for many days, because they contain thiaminase, an enzyme which breaks down vitamin B, and if you eat it constantly, you may have the vitamin B deficiency. Horsetail bulbils, which we found in the horde of marsh woundwort collected by voles, and I'm not sure which species of horsetail, because they generally tend to create these bulbils. Very tasty, even raw. And as far as these tubers are concerned, I actually confuse these names, often say bulbs, but this is a problem with Polish, because in Polish bulwa it's a tuber, so I should call them tubers in English. So these horsetail tubers can be eaten raw. They taste like coconut. Amazing coconutty taste, really tasty, quite hard to find, although horsetails produce a lot of them, and probably all the species of horsetail produce these tubers. So around the place we found this, there is quite a lot of forest horsetail, Equisetum sylvaticum, but also giant horsetail is there, but I think they were quite small, so I would say this is Equisetum sylvaticum. I'm very lucky that the woods here are really species rich. They are of ancient type, woodland, mixed species of trees, horn demon, oak, and linden, and beech, and fir, and elm, and a few species of maples. And you can see the spring flora is very rich. Here we have a kind of little hazel coppice by the church, with wood anemones and langworts and celandines and a few other species, oxlips as well. So it's a very good place to run foraging workshops, as well that there are lots of streams around and ancient meadows, so you can show the whole spectrum of vegetation and edible plants from different types of vegetation. I organize workshops a few times a year. They are mainly for Polish people, mainly in Polish, but I often have people from other countries, and then I translate, I'd say, half of what I say into English, and then the rest they guess or they get it from other people. So if you are interested, you can write to me. I usually advertise in Polish, but maybe you can Google Translate from my website, or maybe you can write to me. And I usually make 2 workshops at the edge of April and May, and then one in summer and 1 or 2 in autumn. They last for 2 days, 2 full days, with accommodation, so you can even come from abroad and enjoy this time. I also recently started making workshops concentrated on making wild gardens, because more and more people want to have high biodiversity in the garden, not only of edible plants, but also of medicinal plants, or just beautiful plants, or just plants which are native. So I do two kinds of workshops now, 2 separate kinds: edible plants and wild garden. Between the house where I do the workshops and the church, we have this younger oak, but it's well over 100 years old, and it's just waiting to replace the old dying oak. So maybe in 100 years this will be the oldest oak in the area.